You think leaving the airport takes forever? Imagine spending 18 years inside one. Not because you work there, but because you literally cannot leave. That's exactly what Mehran Karimi Nasseri did at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, making him one of the strangest human legends of all time. Most people might have spent a few extra hours at an airport due to flight delays, maybe even a night if things got really bad. But Mehran? He wasn't dealing with just a late flight. He was dealing with an entire bureaucratic mess that left him stuck in limbo with no way out. His journey was so bizarre that Hollywood made a movie about his life, and his story remains one of the most surreal examples of bureaucracy gone wrong. To understand how one man ended up living in an airport for 18 years, we have to rewind all the way back to the 1970s. Mehran was originally from Iran, leading an ordinary life, until suddenly, he was politically exiled due to government tensions. Practically overnight, he went from being a regular citizen to a refugee, unable to return to his homeland. For years, he bounced between European countries, trying to find a place that would grant him official asylum. It was a long and difficult journey, but finally, Belgium approved his refugee status, meaning he could legally live there. That should have been the happy ending, right? Not exactly. After years of uncertainty, Mehran wanted a fresh start. He decided to move to England, hoping to rebuild his life in a new country. He packed his bags, booked a flight, and set off to begin the next chapter of his story. But somewhere along the way, disaster struck. While traveling, Mehran's refugee documents mysteriously vanished. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened. Were they stolen? Did he misplace them? Did they fall between the seats on the plane? Regardless of the reason, the outcome was devastating. Without legal papers, England wouldn't let him in. That alone would have been bad, but the real problem was Belgium wouldn't take him back either. Since his asylum process had already been finalized, they considered his case closed and refused to reissue him documents. France didn't recognize his refugee status, meaning they wouldn't allow him to legally enter their country either. Suddenly, he was trapped, unable to move forward, unable to go back, and completely stuck in Charles de Gaulle Airport with nowhere to go. At first, Mehran thought this was just a temporary problem. Surely someone would sort things out within a few days, maybe a week at most. He was optimistic, patiently waiting for officials to fix the paperwork issue so he could continue his journey. Spoiler alert, that did not happen. Days stretched into weeks and weeks into months, but no one came with a solution. Mehran was effectively in legal limbo, unable to legally enter France, but also unable to fly anywhere else. He was not technically arrested, yet he was also not free to go, stuck in an absurd loophole of international immigration laws. After months of sitting in the airport, Mehran had to accept a ridiculous reality. He had nowhere else to go. So he adapted. He picked a bench and claimed it as his home base. He bought food from airport cafes. He showered in public restrooms, read books, and wrote in his journal every day to keep himself occupied. He wasn't leaving anytime soon, so he adjusted to airport life, even if that meant becoming a full-time resident of Terminal 1. At first, airport staff weren't sure how to handle the situation. No one had ever seen a case like this before. He wasn't a threat, he wasn't causing problems, and technically, he wasn't violating any laws. So they just let him stay. Over time, passengers started recognizing him. Journalists picked up his story. Airport employees started bringing him food, helping him out, and chatting with him daily. He went from being a stranded traveler to becoming part of the airport itself. Imagine being an airport employee and seeing the same guy sitting in the same chair every single day for years. At some point, you just have to accept that he is part of the terminal now. By the time Mehran had spent a decade living in the airport, his story had gone global. He had given countless interviews, been featured in news reports, and was recognized by travelers from all over the world. Then came the most surreal twist of all. Steven Spielberg heard about him. Yes, Spielberg, the Spielberg. The director of Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, E.T., and basically every iconic Hollywood film ever made. Spielberg was so intrigued that he based the movie The Terminal on Mehran's life, starring Tom Hanks as a fictionalized version of him. Just pause for a second and appreciate what happened here. Mehran lived in an airport so long that Hollywood literally made a movie about him. Imagine walking into an airport one day and seeing a guy who's been sitting in the same spot for 15 years, only to realize his life story inspired an actual blockbuster film. After 18 years, France finally granted Mehran legal residency, meaning he was free to leave the airport for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Passengers who had seen him in the early years probably got married, had kids, and changed careers by the time he finally walked outside. His airport bench, his home for 18 years, was finally empty. The real question is, after nearly 2 decades of living at an airport, do you think he ever voluntarily stepped inside another airport again? Probably not. So next time your flight is delayed for a few hours, just remember, this man waited 18 years. Subscribe for more.